All right, welcome back. That was the scene this week outside the Supreme Court. DACA supporters hoping the high court does not uphold the Trump administration's decision to toss the Obama-era policy. There are reports that the court's conservative majority will side with President Trump and allow the repeal to go through. But what will Chief Justice John Roberts do? Joining us now is investigative journalist and author Michelle Malkin. Her new book is called Open Borders, Inc., Who's Funding America's Destruction. Also with us tonight, former Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark. Sheriff Clark, great to see you. Michelle, great to have you back with us as well. Thanks for joining us.
You bet.
Thank you. All right, you guys, if you believe the public opinion polling that was done about DACA about a year ago or whenever they were talking about this in Congress, the overwhelming majority of Americans say they want some sort of pathway for legal status for Dreamers. But Michelle, you feel differently. Tell us why.
Because every time that amnesty has been passed, whether it's legislatively or under Obama administratively, all it does is beget more amnesty. It's a lesson that was ignored after 1986, when Reagan signed the Immigration Reform and Control Act into law. That was supposed to be a one-time blanket pardon issued out of compassion. There was a collective sense that we didn't want to deport all the people who were already here. And the other part of the bargain was that we were going to get serious enforcement, comprehensive enforcement of our laws, and real physical barriers that would prevent this massive flow, particularly from the South. And between 1986 and 2001, when the 9/11 hijackers struck, there were 13 different amnesties, and millions upon millions of illegal aliens have been granted this pathway to citizenship, and it has spelled essentially demographic doom and electoral demise of the Republican Party, conservatives, and the rule of law.
Hey, Sheriff Clark, who do you think is really responsible? I mean, there is no political will for doing anything significant when it comes to securing our southern border. Who do you think is most responsible for blocking that?
Well, Open Borders, Inc. Oh, sorry. I thought
that was the Sheriff Clark. We'll get back to you, Michelle.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Let's back up a little bit and remember how we got here. President Obama, former President Obama, issued an executive order in violation of the Constitution. Now, there could be political fallout from polling, and so they have to pay attention to polling. However, I don't care about polling. I care about the Constitution, and Article 1, Section 8 is very clear that the Congress has the power to form rules on naturalization or immigration, and that didn't happen here. Now, you mentioned John Roberts. I'm very worried about him. John Roberts made a statement relative to this case where he said, well, we want to do the humanitarian thing. I don't want to do the humanitarian thing. I want to do the constitutional thing. He's not an originalist like he sold himself to be. And also a comment made, but I don't want to read too much into the comments, but a comment made by Justice Breyer. He said, well, we've been doing this thing for a long time, this DACA, and a lot of people are dependent upon it. You know what? I don't have crocodile tears for that. I care about the Constitution. They know that this is unconstitutional. And that's why the President Trump made the decision that he did. He said, hey, this is unlawful and we have to stop it. What to do with the 700 or so thousand people that are on this thing? Right. I'm going to let Congress and the president grapple with that.
Right. And that's what the president says he needs to do. And even if you want the Dreamers to stay in this country, you can't be okay with the executive branch having the sole power to make this determination. It has to be done through Congress to really make it constitutional. And Michelle, you mentioned President Reagan and the amnesty of 1986. Nancy Pelosi also brought that up this week, except she compared that to DACA and President Obama. Let's take a listen.
And now this court has to decide as to whether President Obama was correct in following the lead of President Reagan in protecting newcomers in our country, or to support the illicit act of President Trump and what he did.
Michelle, Nancy Pelosi cannot honestly expect us to believe, as smart as she is, that there's a parallel between what happened in 1986 and what Barack Obama did.
Just complete duplicity from that smirking House Speaker. Of course, President Reagan signed a law that was debated openly and transparently in Congress. And again, let's remember, it wasn't just an amnesty. There was supposed to be enforcement. With the DACA and the DAPA executive orders that Obama signed unilaterally without any debate, without any input from the American people. 800,000 illegal aliens were granted not only blanket deportation shields, but work permits. And every single one of the Democratic presidential candidates and leaders are always paying lip service to raising wages and improving the economy for the downtrodden, when they're putting American students, families, citizens, and workers last with exactly these kind of amnesty programs.
It's true. And, you talked about this too, Michelle, with what goes on in college campuses too, and some of these special visa programs for the elites from foreign countries too. I know you cover that a lot. We'll get into that in another topic. We're going to say goodbye to Sheriff Clark. Thank you for your time, Sheriff Clark. Great to see you as always. Michelle's going to stick around for a few more minutes. We're going to do kind of a lightning round here, Michelle, because I wanted to talk to you about a few other topics. We were talking about this story earlier today. Let's start with the so-called ISIS bride. Which is another name for just a terrorist, but her name is Huda Mathina, and she can't come back to the United States after moving to Syria to join ISIS. She married multiple terrorists and had a child while she was over there. She is an American-born woman, but a judge ruled this week voiding her citizenship because her father was here on a diplomatic visa when she was actually born. A federal judge again has ruled that she cannot return home because she moved to Syria to join ISIS, and some other technicalities here. But this is a win, Michelle, I think, for all of America. Don't you agree? She shouldn't get a second chance.
Absolutely not. This woman is not only an ingrate, she's a threat to the American people and our national security. The reason why it's a significant court case, of course, is that we rarely ever have adjudication of one of the most important issues that's driving mass migration into the country, and that is the guarantee of birthright citizenship. There are already explicit carve-outs for the children of foreign diplomats, and it was finally enforced by a judge. I was pleasantly surprised by that. And it was, I think, an international rebuke because you do have so many people coming over here, whether they're the children of diplomats or whether they're coming through legal guest worker pipelines or the refugee resettlement program, which is rife with exactly the type of jihadists that this ISIS bride turned out to be, that we're importing onto American soil. And then in many cases, of course, these people are going back to their home countries or other countries and targeting American soldiers and American citizens. Why do you think the Twin Cities has turned into what it has? It was the refugee resettlement dump and the redistribution of hundreds of thousands of Somalian Muslims from their country into the interior of our country, where, as I've documented in Open Borders, Inc., nearly 60 of them abused the generous compassion of our country and turned it against us.
Yeah, it is really astounding that she would even think, and the way the media portrayed her, too, as a victim in all this. Look, I'm in favor of second chances, but the fact that she would think that it's okay to come home at this stage of the game is insane. All right, we got about 30 seconds left. I want to talk about Stephen Miller, the White House aide right now. He's under attack from the Southern Poverty Law Center. They're digging up a lot of his past emails right now. What's really going on here, Michelle?
The SPLC is a discredited, ruthless smear machine, and they are propped up by a complicit media that wants to bring down every last sovereignty hawk within the White House. There is nothing that is either racist, xenophobic, or white supremacist about the emails that were uncovered and leaked by a former editor at Breitbart. There's nothing wrong with recommending that people read interesting works about the effects of mass migration. Stephen Miller had recommended, for example, Camp of the Saints, which was written up, by the way, by two academics in The Atlantic, a liberal magazine, which led to a renaissance of people taking interest in it.
People get, they get so worked over the term nationalist. I just read Rich Lowry's new book, The Case for Nationalism. It's a very hot word right now, but I think a lot of people conflate nationalism and national identity with racial identity as well, and they're separate things.
Yeah.
It's dangerous and a trap. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but Michelle, we'll see you again next week. A lot to talk about. I want to talk about your big speech at UCLA last night. Got a lot of people worked up, and we'll follow up on that when we talk to you next week. And a reminder to everybody at home, make sure you tune in this weekend to catch a new episode of Michelle Malkin Investigates this Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern and Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern right here on Newsmax TV. All right, more ahead here on Newsmax Now. We'll be right back after this. You just just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing news channel, now in 65 million homes. Get Newsmax TV on all the major cable systems or go to NewsmaxTV.com and click on the Find Newsmax tab to locate us. Remember, Newsmax TV, where real news for real people.